How can this be the case when he threatens to murder people and encourages mob violence? Well, it's like I said earlier, black privilege.
In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime,
and the SJW district attorneys who don't prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
There is total and complete outrage from the US media after new video surfaces which they tell us depicts two white men ambushing and executing a black jogger. CNN's Don Lemon is pissed. He hasn't been this pissed since approximately 1 week ago, when President Donald Trump pointed out that Obama's Russiagate conspiracy theory was basically pure bullshit.
What is it about President Obama that really gets under your skin? What is it about him? That he's a black man that's accomplished, became president?
By now, most of the people watching this video have likely seen the cell phone video depicting the events leading up to the death of Ahmaud Arbery. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you can find it online. The video depicts two armed white men confront Ahmaud Arbery. Ahmaud Arbery tries to disarm one of them of a shotgun and then is shot. From this footage, it's quite obvious that Ahmaud Arbery's death cannot be described as a conventional murder. In any life or death situation, for example, a situation where two people are wrestling over a shotgun, a killing is normally going to be justified. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that Ahmaud Arbery's death wasn't a murder. While it's clearly not a conventional murder, it could be considered a felony murder. If we assume these two white men had no legitimate basis to stop Ahmaud Arbery, then them telling him to freeze and pointing a gun at him would constitute a felony aggravated assault. Because even though these men may have been justified in self-defense in shooting Ahmaud Arbery, the fact that they caused this situation to begin with by committing a felony aggravated assault, then they're therefore guilty of felony murder. Of course, we're talking about in theory. The great irony of this situation is that for years now, social justice warriors have demanded that the felony murder rule be abolished. After all, a disproportionate number of people who end up convicted of felony murder happen to fall in a certain demographic group. But don't take it from me. Here's what the New York Times has to say.
All right. I want to tell you about something called the felony murder rule. It's a glitch in our criminal justice system, a glitch we only have in the United States. But the felony murder rule said I should be sentenced for first-degree murder. And that's what I got. 25 years to life. I was 18. Maybe you're thinking I deserve to go to prison. And I agree with you. I committed a robbery and I should be held responsible. From a study of crime data, it said that 1 in 5 people for murder convictions are there for felony murder. If that's true, and again, we're not for sure, but if that's true, that's 36,000 people in prison right now serving time for murders they should never have been charged with.
We know this is around. It's not an exception. Unfortunately, It's generally the rule. And so it's not like, whoa, what the hell is felony murder? And what's this crazy state up to, right? But I think we should rethink it. Okay.
It's disastrous.
And now we have these felony murder rules everywhere. Oh, you know, you were involved in a crime. Somebody died at some point. You shot him in the head. But you didn't shoot him in the head. That's a different crime. Don't get anybody wrong. He's still going to be in jail for quite some time for the burglary.
For the burglary.
Right?
As he should be.
Right.
Yeah, Chank, so I guess you agree then that these two white men shouldn't be charged with felony murder. That would be bullshit, right? The only thing that they should ever be charged with is the underlying offense of aggravated assault. I mean, you wouldn't want to be a hypocrite on this issue, would you? Of course, I'm just talking strictly in theory here. In theory, these two men could be guilty of felony murder. In reality is a different story. If these men had a legitimate reason to stop Ahmaud Arbery at gunpoint, then they would be innocent of any type of murder. Given that this video has existed for over a month, and these men have only been arrested for this crime in the last couple of days, I would say that it's fair to conclude they probably had some legitimate reason that they were able to provide as to why they stopped Ahmaud Arbery. According to Georgia's citizen arrest law, if you witness someone commit any felony offense, as a private citizen, you're entitled to arrest them. That would mean that these two men did not commit an aggravated assault, and if they didn't commit an underlying felony, they couldn't be found guilty of felony murder. You know, when it comes to all of these attorneys and civil rights advocates that are going on TV talking about how much of a tragedy this is, I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. It's like I've got a case of deja vu. Like we've gone through this process before. This story we're being told of a racist hate crime where two armed white men ambushed and executed an innocent black jogger sounds awfully familiar to another story we were told that turned out to be a total fairy tale. I recall CNN putting a picture up of 12-year-old Trayvon Martin. This poor innocent teenager was gunned down by a racist white police officer. CNN then plays an audio recording from the 911 call. George Zimmerman is heard on the recording. There's a man acting suspicious near my apartment building. He's black. CNN then tells us that the white police officer continues to follow Trayvon Martin, even after the 911 dispatcher tells him not to. Then Trayvon Martin, after being confronted with a gun, puts his hands up, says don't shoot, and then George Zimmerman, the racist white cop, executes him. Of course, everything about this story turned out to be a lie. George Zimmerman wasn't a racist white police officer. He was a Hispanic Jew neighborhood watch person. That audio clip that CNN played where he says, I'm following a suspicious person, he's black, it was edited out of context to misportray the entire situation. If you were to listen to the actual recording, it sounds something like this. I'm following this suspicious man near my apartment building. Oh, can you describe him? He's wearing a hooded sweatshirt. What race is he? He's black. That's the real audio recording. The portrayal of what happened was also a lie. George Zimmerman didn't follow Trayvon Martin. They separated from each other and then ran into each other again. There was no conclusive evidence that the shooting was not in self-defense. There was also a huge revelation about a year after the trial that the whole criminal case was basically based on bullshit. The heavyset black woman who was the key witness for the prosecution, the person who was supposedly on the phone with Trayvon Martin when he was gunned down by George Zimmerman, was apparently not even on the phone with him. She was testifying on behalf of Trayvon Martin's real girlfriend, who was too afraid to make these accusations publicly in a courtroom, likely because they were lies. But despite all of these multitude of issues, Florida's taxpayers bankrolled this prosecution. Millions of dollars were spent trying to send George Zimmerman to prison for killing Trayvon Martin. The same thing happened in Ferguson. All of this taxpayer money was invested into this protracted grand jury investigation and a separate FBI federal investigation, all to come to the conclusion that everyone knew was obvious from the beginning. The shooting of Michael Brown was justified. Then you had all of these Baltimore police officers prosecuted for the death of Freddie Gray. After losing 3 to 4 jury trials in a row, the district attorney's office dismissed charges against all of them. As a result of this, morale amongst Baltimore police officers plummeted, and at the same time, the murder rate in Baltimore skyrocketed. So why do we keep wasting millions of dollars in taxpayer money on criminal investigations and prosecutions we know aren't going to result in convictions? Why do we keep filing these charges that have no hope of ever getting signed off on by a jury? The only reason I can think of is black privilege. Blacks in the United States are granted the special privilege that anyone responsible for their death will be criminally prosecuted regardless of the facts and circumstances surrounding the killing, and regardless of the fact that evidence exists suggesting that said killing was justified. This is just one of several special privileges that only blacks seem to have. Of course, even this privilege is never going to be enough for these people. Just wait till these two white men are acquitted of the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Wait for all of the outrage. These people won't be satisfied until blacks have been granted the privilege to deprive other people of their property with no consequences. Not only do they view it as bullshit that a citizen may try and arrest someone who burglarized their house or car, they don't want those people to be subject to prosecution at all. A day doesn't go by without some shrill social justice warrior like Vaush demanding an end to the prosecution of all property crimes. They want to end the rule of law in the United States so that black people can claim even more special privileges. What they want is anarcho-tyranny. If you're a criminal, you have free reign to do whatever you want. But if you're a law-abiding citizen, if you're doing all of the right things, and then you try and defend yourself against criminals who are trying to take your property, then now you're the one who's the bad guy. You're the one who's going to face the tyranny of the state. It's not the criminals who these people are interested in going after. It's ordinary American citizens. Don't believe me? Well, let's look at the example of fake black person and Black Lives Matter leader Shaun King. To the two white men who were recently arrested in the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery, Shaun King threatens that he knows where they live. And if the state of Georgia fails to convict these men, he vows to lead a lynch mob of at least 150 people to see to it that they're executed. What were the consequences of such a brazen terrorist threat directed at the government of Georgia? Well, let's see. Shaun King has not been charged or investigated for committing a threat. His Facebook membership has not been revoked. He hasn't been banned. He's still on Twitter, and he's still invited to speak on a multitude of college campuses. How can this be the case when he threatens to murder people and encourages mob violence? Well, it's like I said earlier, black privilege. If you're a white person and you post a meme of yourself holding a gun, talking about how you're gonna go see the Joker movie, well, the state is going to prosecute you for that. But they're not gonna prosecute Shaun King. Shaun King has black privilege. You don't have any privileges. Under the system of anarcho-tyranny, remember the criminals can do whatever they want. But if you try and stand up to them, don't expect to be treated the same way. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today's video. If you enjoyed it and you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe.